Everybody, let's talk about the what and the why of mini lessons. So, according to Lisa Eckholt and Patricia Vitale Riley from the Teacher's Guide to Writer's Workshop Mini Lessons, the mini lesson is the time when you teach the whole class about one particular aspect of writing, could be the process, genre, craft, or convention. And the mini lesson also has both the I do and the we do portion of the gradual release of responsibility model. Why? Well, students need explicit instruction. And of course, not just in writing, but in reading. There are reading mini lessons as well. But they need explicit instruction. They need to really see how the skills work, see them in action. So the mini lesson allows for that. And you would be able to use either a mentor text where you show how writers use certain moves or habits or craft in their writing. And also the modeled writing where you're showing them these things in real time and you're able to tailor it to what you are teaching them. It also, because of the we do portion of the gradual release in the active engagement part of the mini lesson, it also allows for students to instantly practice that new strategy. So that is super effective for them to do and provides that level of support and time for even some collaboration with their classmates before they go and write independently. So let's take a look at each of the components of a mini lesson. So I wanted to start with the teaching point and the link. I also have teach next to teaching point because they really do go together. But the teaching point and the link are the first things that you want to think about and plan when you go to do your mini lesson. The teaching point and the link are almost exactly the same. The teaching point is where you tell students exactly what you're teaching them and why. And then the link is pretty much a repeat of that, which you will see in just a moment. It needs to be short and concise. And we're also going to talk a little bit in a moment about the language that you'll use in a mini lesson. So then you're going to you would like to think about how the connection is leading you to the teaching point. That is the whole point of a connection. It connects the students to this learning. It could be a bit of a hook where you tell them something that's related to the teaching point to bring them into it. It could also be just a little review of what they're doing, which is what I'll show you on the next slide. And the active engagement portion, after you have done the teach, where you're showing them in some way the new strategy, the active engagement is then allowing them to practice this teaching point or practice the way that you are going to hit the teaching point. So let's take a look at what this really means. Okay, so I have a lot of words on here, but I really just, you can read them. I'm just going to kind of talk about some of the language that's in bold. Now, the reason why it's a good idea to have common, consistent language in your teaching point is the reason is twofold. One, it really helps the teacher to just flow through the lesson. You know, you're always going to say the same things. You know which component you're teaching, and it really just helps it to go smoothly. But it also is very helpful for the student for a couple of reasons. One, it just helps them to engage because they know what is happening. This mini lesson is going to be exactly the same, have exactly the same components and the same steps every time. They might just look a little different, but if the language is the same, then they understand, oh, she's showing me something. Oh, it's about to be our turn. So I will show you those in a second. But also for students who are English language learners or have some learning difficulties, having that language is also super helpful for them because it stays consistent and they can really learn what's going on. Now, I had said before we have connection and the teaching point, but I had recently heard from someone from the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project that it could also be helpful for many learners to have the teaching point, then the connection, and then the teaching point again. So it's just something to think about. So let's take a look at this connection. And again, this is more of a review of what they've been doing. So the language that I have bolded here is you have been working on. And so here I said they've been working on really finding evidence to include in their opinion writing and their persuasive writing, as an example here. And I know that you want to choose what would be most effective in persuading your readers. Now, even if they haven't thought about that, that's how I'm going to connect them to this teaching point, which is today I want to teach you that writers, which is the language I would like to keep consistent in my teaching point in my mini lesson, that writers consider their reader when choosing evidence in order to support their reasons. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to show you them that writers do. This is the skill. But that language today, I want to teach you, and especially saying that writers do this, it's a very great way to to get them to zone in on that teaching point. So then I have a short example, not quite all of the example of what the teach would be, but I love to say, let me show you what I mean. So when I say this, I'm going to teach you this, let me show you what I mean. What does that really look like? And in this example, I'm using modeled writing. So I have a writing that I've been working on with the students, and I want them to see how I'm going to try this strategy of considering my reader when I'm choosing evidence. So let's say I have some ideas for evidence already. I've looked some things up and I already have them, but I want to choose what's most effective. So when I have a claim that a 4-day student school week is something that we should have, um, and one of my reasons is that teachers will have more time for training and planning. Well, what evidence is going to be most effective for the reader? So, first, I might consider that my reader is a principal, and I would walk through choosing the evidence that's most persuasive for them. And then I might think, what if my reader is, or what if I change it so that my audience is going to be parents? What kind of evidence is going to help persuade them that teachers need this more time for planning and training? And I might go through my evidence and show them why I'm choosing certain evidence for that reader. So I've done my teach. I used a modeled writing in this instance to be able to show how I am choosing the best evidence for my reader. So then I'm going to move on to active engagement, which is where the students are able to try the strategy. And so I have language that says, now it's your turn. That's what I use almost every time. I say, now it's your turn, or now it's your turn to try. So in this example, I'm having them actually look at their own piece of writing, look at the evidence that they have already chosen, or evidence that they have found, whatever is, kind of happening in the class at the time. And I'm asking them to consider their reader or their audience and then choose or decide whether or not their evidence is persuasive for them. And right now it's a thumbs up, thumbs down. It could also be talk to their partners or talk to a partner about why this is persuasive for their reader. So the point of active engagement is to try it out. Sometimes they might be trying it out with your modeled writing, and maybe together you all are going to do the strategy or try the strategy, or with partners. Sometimes active engagement is just talking to their partner and sharing an idea, or sharing a little just example of what you talked about in the teach. But it is great for them to be able to apply it to their writing. There are a lot of different ways that they can actively engage, and it depends on what the teaching point is. And then the link, again, it's the teaching point, but we might say something like, today we learned that writers, and today it was consider their reader when choosing evidence to support their reasons. And then we might say something like, remember this when, and in this point, it's in this one, sorry, it's finding evidence for your opinion writing. But again, you're repeating that teaching point and then inviting them to try, or reminding them of when this might be useful. So, if you're looking for more about mini lessons, check out more videos on the channel. I have videos that I have done where I show the different components of the mini lesson. And if you have any questions, reach out at my email right here, melissa@teachingtotransform.com. Thanks so much.